1 day away from the North Carolina primary, and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are neck and neck in the latest NBC News Marist poll. Sanders leads at 26%, Biden at 24%, Michael Bloomberg rounding out the top three at 15%.
WSOC TV reporter Joe Bruno has been following the candidates' travels throughout the state for months, and he joins us now via Skype to share what he has learned. Welcome back to Rising. Great to see you, Joe.
How are you, Joe?
Hey there. Great to be here.
Absolutely.
All right, just tell us a little bit about the energy on the ground for these candidates.
Yeah, so right now, really, it is just a three-way race, and Bloomberg is fading. It's Bernie, Biden, and Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg has spent $15 million on ads. These ads have been popping up on Facebook, YouTube, television, faster than apartments in Charlotte lately. Compare that to $2.8 million total in Democratic primary spending in 2016. There's not a single candidate who's come close to Bloomberg's operation in North Carolina and Charlotte in particular. He's got a state headquarters there. He's got more than 140 paid staffers, but that's just not looking like it's translating to votes at this point.
So, Joe, from what you can tell, what do you think is going to be the main dividing line in the race? And so how many early votes have been cast? Do you think that Pete Buttigieg's dropping out may benefit a Joe Biden?
I think Biden will get a little pickup from Buttigieg dropping out. Hundreds of thousands of votes have already been casted. About 11% of registered voters decided to vote early.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see tomorrow, when the first results post from North Carolina, those will be all the early votes that have been cast. So if Biden does get any momentum or boost from his South Carolina victory, it won't be until later in the night when we start seeing those election day returns come in.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important note. And do we know demographically anything about the early vote? Do we know how it compares to other years, other primary years?
It's about on pace for what we saw in 2016 right now. There wasn't a whole lot of surge. I was looking particularly at UNC Charlotte's campus. There really wasn't a huge surge of young voters at the polling precinct that was on their campus there. I think people will turn out on Election Day. A lot of people were kind of just waiting to see what would happen with Nevada and with South Carolina. I mean, this primary's changed every single day. I think there were a lot of voters who haven't made up their mind until just now.
That's interesting, Joe. So what do you think that based on your conversation with voters, based on your coverage of the events, what is it that is, making people decide between Biden or not? Do you think that Biden in particular will get a bump from his win in South Carolina? And then same with Bernie Sanders after his wins in Iowa, New Hampshire, and in Nevada?
I do. I think a lot of North Carolina voters were just waiting to see how competitive Biden could be in South Carolina and seeing if his campaign has fight in him. A lot of people who were considering Bloomberg were looking for that moderate alternative to Bernie Sanders. I got to say, I saw Bloomberg speak on Saturday night in Charlotte. He addressed a room of about a couple hundred major Democratic Party supporters. I just did not see a whole lot of enthusiasm for his campaign. The one Democratic candidate who I will say that really, lit up the audience when he was in town was Bernie Sanders. Packed the room, more than 1,500 people in the middle of the day on a weekday. And the thing that stood out to me was the ticket ushers were in the aisles recording Bernie Sanders' speech on their phones. That's real enthusiasm. That's that working class vote that Bernie Sanders is going after. Those are the endorsements I think that he wants.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think the demographic makeup will be on Election Day? Of course, in South Carolina, it was a majority African American. It's an older state demographically than North Carolina. Just take us into what you think that breakdown will be.
Yeah, well, Charlotte's a majority minority city, so that's the focus there in this part. In particular with Charlotte, it's interesting because we are such a banking city, and there are a lot of moderate Democrats, but campaigns really can't just tailor their message to them because we are majority minority. We really have to. They really have to focus on everyone. So it'll be interesting to see what that turnout is.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, great to have that update. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, 50% of the Democratic voters of South Carolina supporting Medicare for All system. Medicare for All Now President Wendell Potter, he weighs in on this and more when Rising continues.